Welcome, hotshots, to the Firepower X self-command portal, where you can find the industrial strength tools and resources you need to dominate your personal and professional wellness. My name is Jess. I'm boss lady over here at Firepower X, former firefighter, and your host for today's webinar. And I am so excited to introduce to you our special guest today, Assistant Chief Mike Scott with the Grand Fire Protection District. Mike is a well-known service leader, speaker, and educator who's been active in the emergency services community for over 25 years. He was raised in Oklahoma, and his Colorado career has included roles at Denver Health, Foothills Fire Protection District, Pleasant View, Red Rocks Community College, and Crested Butte, among many others. He's also a board member for several EMS and fire advisory councils, and including the Colorado EMS Chiefs Association, the International Association of Fire Chiefs, and NAEMT. And you may recognize Mike from our October conference, where he was one of our fan favorites. So welcome back, Mike. We are so excited to have you back in the spotlight with us today.
Well, Jess, thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of, especially such of a great organization and a great mission that you and your team full-fledged put forth on not only emergency services, but all folks, responders and non-responders. So thank you so much for that opportunity.
Oh, you're so welcome. And thank you for being such a champion of self-care. And that is what we're going to talk about today. That's the gist of our discussion. And I want to link it in with some of the things that I have observed about you in my short time of knowing you, and kind of ways that you've really exemplified self-care in your life. Because I think that was part of the reason I reached out to you to speak at our conference, and why I keep wanting to talk to you. You're such a good role model. So, and self-care is such a buzzword right now, right? Everybody says self-care, but why is this topic particularly close to your heart? I'm just curious.
Well, I think self-care is super important, and it's such a vast variety of things. You know, I think whenever people think of self-care, they want to put it in a box or say, hey, we have to do this, and that for self-care. But most people, if you get down that road and start to educate yourself, train yourself to that effect, then you know that self-care can be absolutely anything. It depends what you need in your life. So I think for me, what kind of made me shift in not only my career and my personal life was truly life challenges, career challenges that I thought was the way I'm supposed to do things, or the way that it was set for me to do things. And it was really hard for me. And it was like I struggled, and I was looking for pathways. And then as I looked at others seeking for this, others struggled with that too. And then I'm thinking to myself, how can we, not only me as a person, but us as a group, as responders, do better? So I went down my journey, and my journey opened up my eyes to how important self-care is. And a lot of you know my journey, a lot of you don't, but I think each person has that story, that journey, and try to facilitate life in the best way we can, not only career, but our own personal lives. And I think for me, I had to learn that. It wasn't easy, you know, being in the fire service for about 25, 26 years. It's been a unique journey, and it wasn't, I could tell you, it wasn't up until around 2012, 13, 14 that I realized, wait a minute. This is not all that important as I thought it was. And so I think that, I mean, it's kind of a roundabout answer, but I mean, as most know in the fire service, or even beyond that, emergency service in general, but I fly that flag really hard, because I think self-care is important to life and how we prosper in life. No matter how you move forward, you have to take care of yourself. So
yeah. Was there a particular, I was going to ask you when the moment was where this really, like, you decided to like make it real. You're like, this, I have to take care of myself. Around that time frame you mentioned, what was there, like a pivotal incident that happened, or was it just kind of a realization, or how did it transpire for you?
yeah, well, for me, it was to be honest with you, forced, if you will. So being a newer chief and had been a chief for a while at an organization, I had that year, it was a unique situation. I want to say maybe 15, 13, 14. Can't even remember. But the organization allotted the volunteers to evaluate the chiefs, the fire chief, the EMS chief, and that year, it's like it was the exact same year that our organization received it was EMS of the year, and it was like our EMS service of the year, and it was like a huge award for the state. We're so proud. So it's like the year that we were the best service in the state of Colorado was the year that I received some not so pleasant evaluations.
Wow. Uh-huh.
So out of yeah, it was unique. So out of about 15, there's at the time like 30 or 40 people in the organization, but about a 15 to 20 evaluations of myself and the fire chief at the time, and then only 4 of those were negative. Mm-hmm. And so myself and the fire chief were talking, and it really hit me home. I was like, my career, I've never got those negative evaluations. And I was just like, huh. So I was talking to the fire chief, I go, how? And to him, he was just like, oh, all that happens every year, don't, we'll just do better. I'm like, no, we got to listen to these people. So myself, I was sat down with the board of directors, and I'm like, I don't know. I want to do better. How do I do better? And they're like, well, we don't know either. We don't know. You're well trained, you're educated. We don't know what you might need. So why don't you come back to something? So I did my research and I did everything, been in emergency services since like 97 and never really looked into this. And then all of a sudden one day I had like a epiphany. I'm like, well, what if I should go talk to like a counselor or something? Like maybe it's not even the job. Maybe it's not my leadership. Maybe it's like me, I was having some relationship challenges at the time as well. And I'm just like, So I went back to the board of directors and I was like, hey, well, I think I'm going to go to like a counselor. And they're just like, okay, whatever you need to do. And wow, did that change the way I looked at things. The first thing that one of the counselors said to me was, I can't believe you've been in emergency services so long and you've never talked to anybody. Mm-hmm. And I was like, yeah, because we're not supposed to. Mm-hmm. And they're just like, what are you talking about? And the young lady that I was speaking with had no emergency service background, and this and that. And we went for about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and then I was really learning a lot about myself. Like, for an example, I'm a very honest person. And I said to that counselor that day, I go, well, I'm just, brutally honest sometimes. She goes, well, have you ever thought about that people don't want to always hear your honesty? Or maybe instead of being brutally honest, you're just brutal? And I was like, ooh, whoa, I never thought about that. Maybe it's like, oh my gosh. So I learned so much within those 3 weeks. And then at the time I went back to my organization, I was getting recruited by others. And the board and the district manager at the time was saying, well, hey, how's that old counseling thing going? It seems like you're good to go with us. You're, and I'm just like, it's going great. It's like the best thing I ever did. It's like I've never, and I go, even my relationship's better. And like, okay, well, you've met the requirements, so you don't have to go anymore. And I was like, whoa, requirements? I want to go. This is helping me. And they looked me in my eye and they said, well, this is expensive. I was like, oh. At that point, I learned again, who's important? Me or the organ? I mean, I understand there's a position, there's a mission, and there's a community serving. I understand that. But wait a minute, what if you guys told me that I needed this and I got it, and now it's like, oh, it's a So that day was my last day talking to that counselor, and the counselor and I kind of agreed that it's probably time for me to go on a new adventure somewhere.
Mhm.
Because organizations do change, don't get me wrong, but at the time that one was not. And so I was being recruited by several others, and so I chose to go with one. And from then on, I looked at like myself differently. I was like, well, one, what I all these problems are not career oriented. They're not, it's more like me on the internal. Something like maybe I've done this too long. Maybe, starting as an explorer at 14, Ryan Amos wouldn't. And I actually looked at it different. And then I could tell you for me, my journey went this is almost the exact same way. I started working, I got really engaged in work, and it was a new mic, and I flipped everything back to my work. And
Mhm.
I worked really, really hard and got a lot of great opportunities, career wise, and then another one, and some of uh, I had another learning opportunity, and that's when my mom passed away. And so for me, that was my second um, opening to my next book in life, and
Mhm.
it was almost like a you remember because back in like 14, 15, and then now it's like you went right back into your, and then also now it's like you got to remember Mike's important, family's important. The job doesn't define me. I love the job, but they're gonna be okay if I'm not there. So
And I think I totally agree. These moments of that kind of take us out of left field where we're not expecting, a trauma or, losing someone or, you know, that really they're a golden opportunity to reevaluate where we are, and to reevaluate what we want and what's important. Um, I kind of want to circle back to the humility piece that you alluded to in the story with the counselor, because I know in a previous interview I've had with you, Mike, you mentioned that your personal motto was stay humble. How do you think being humble and self-care kind of play together? What do you think the relationship is with that?
well, I think humility and self-care goes hand in hand because the hardest part of self-care is having those techniques or having like what is your challenge, what is making you feel this way, what is truly going to make you a better person that you want to be. I think that is the hardest part because I struggle with sometimes, and and I work on it every day, is trying to show that humility, but yet still trying to stand your ground and fight what's right. Like for an example, to some folks, like Mike Scott might talk too much. And like for me, I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't want to talk too much. I don't want to force my opinion on people. I don't want to carry the room. I don't want to, but I got something to say,
Mhm.
So that humility part would be like, okay, you need to be quiet and you need to listen, and your turn is coming. And think about what you're going to say because you're going to get a moment to say something, but you don't have to say something right now at this moment.
Mhm.
So I think learning about ourselves is that humility portion of like, well, I like this, but am I supposed to like this? I mean, is it okay? I'm not supposed to this is some activity or some type of thing that truly helps me release all my stress, but maybe to others it might not be that cool.
Mhm.
For an example, I know some folks, and I used to try, not so much anymore, but the line dancing stuff. People don't, it goes, hey, I'm going line dancing on Friday. Do you want to, there's like, hey, I think I'm going out. I think I might want to. Knowing your release is that, I mean, knowing that you love that, but you don't really bust in there talking about, hey, that's my release. So I think that humility portion, like, hey, y'all know what? I love line dancing. I'm going Friday. Y'all should try it. I think that's that humility portion. Granted, it could go way deeper in a lot of different subjects. I'm just looking for those basic examples that might help a folk kind of transition to that humility portion because I work on the humility and sometimes it turns into beating yourself up.
Mhm.
And that's the challenge.
Yes. and owning who we are. I think that's a great example of just owning what you like and not, working with it and not fighting against it. The importance of fun. And again, this is something that's come up in previous interviews we've had of, you mentioned fun during training and, fun during self-care, because I know fishing for you is one of those activities.
That's my thing. I tell you what, I mean, for me, I mean, the fun portion is it, and I think for years, and I even speak on it and tell folks about it, that I chose my career over my family life, my happiness, and then like I found happiness, and to me, it's like I can't get enough happiness now. It's like I kind of laugh and joke. I tell folks like, well, I fish and I will work at the fire department part-time, So, and so they're like, oh, you're part-time? No, I'm full-time career firefighter. I'm a ops and training chief, but the fun comes first. The job is not support. My oldest daughter, she'll be 22 this year. I put my career first entirely through her life. And so, I mean, I'm still trying to build those relationships, but with my younger kids, I know that they're first. Like they love coming to the firehouse. They love, and for me, fishing has made my mental release and it's fun, it's challenging, and it's something that I try to master that's kind of hard to master. I just recently, last weekend, went ice fishing for the first time. And I'm
Oh,
like, oh, yes. I'm like, oh, no, not another avenue. So, and especially whenever the very first time you go, my other friend take me. I've never been before in my life. Been fishing since I was a kid, fished my whole life, fished tournaments, but never ice fishing. But my very first time going fishing, ice fishing.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
what
yeah,
is it? I
yeah.
can't tell from the photo.
It is just it's a brown a trout, a brown trout, and it's like 28, 29 inches. And I was just like, and like the people I was with, they're just like, oh my gosh, you know what you did? I'm just like, this is great, I love it, and I just had a good time, so I think that folks, not only in emergency services, but I think people beat themselves up when it comes to that fun aspect, even if that's their mental health release. There's like, and I think that's what we need to do and embrace more, not only in emergency services, but just in life. Be like, hey, I like this, I want to go do this, and it's okay. And that's what's going to help me with my life challenges. That's what's going to help me facilitate any type of feelings or things that I'm struggling with. And sometimes those type of challenges don't go away that day. It's not like, well, Mike, I went fishing and I'm still kind of depressed. Well, maybe that's not your jam. Yeah. Maybe you need to find you, and by all means, there are different levels. Like I am no doctor, didn't studied emergency management and fire service, but so to me, that just works for me. And so I think each person is different and they got to find out like what works for them. It might be, for me, it was fishing. Like for some, roller skating. For some, it might be working out. I know a lot of people like to, and then they get to the point where their release is not working anymore. So they got to either change it or go to another level. So
do you think that's what's missing in the fire service right now is fun? Do you think that we've moved away from the fun?
Yeah, I do. I think that like we embrace that what we're supposed to be and not what we are. I even think like I did some interviews last week. I have interviews today, and it's like I always remind folks: are we picking folks that are more like us? Like, well, this person, I want to be like me. Are we picking folks that are what we want people to be in our organization? Or are we taking people for face value because we hire their heart and train their hand? I mean, that's what the director of the fire service right now, Chief Mike Morgan, that what he always used to always tell us, man, we hire the heart and train the hand. And so like I think that sometimes when we look at these folks and look at the fire service, look at it's like, are we trying to pick people that what we want to be? Is like, well, most of us have never been that. So I always like, and people hear me say it all the time, but it's like a hand, you know. It's like, I mean, the hand works really well together. But if you, the hand is all different shapes and sizes. You know, it's
Mhm.
different. There's tall ones, there's short. There's little short round. I'm a thumb. I embrace the thumb. You know, but when we're all together, look at that. That thing works great. But you
Mhm.
lose one of them, you know, the whole operation looks different. So to me, I think the fire service is like a hand. We're all different shapes and sizes, and it
Mhm.
takes all of us to work together
Mhm.
compared to embracing others. And by all means, it's like I think different organizations, different firefighters, different folks look at stuff different. So, but that's just what I feel and my concept. By all means, not the know all be all, but
Mhm.
I just think it's like had the opportunity. Me and Lieutenant Calvin Brown from Larkspur spoke at their state EMS conference, and we talked on unconscious bias,
Mhm.
and we talked about different types of levels. But in that presentation, I always use the term checks mix.
Mhm.
I was like, man, we all want to come to the party. We're like a bowl of Chex Mix. We're all different shapes, sizes, colors, and everything. But when we get together, it's a party, man. So
Mhm.
let's just be the Chex Mix, man.
That's a great analogy. Yeah, because together it's more exciting. And I think too, there's from what I perceive, because when I started in the fire service, that was, gosh, 1998. And the culture was different. There was kind of these hazing behaviors that we're trying to get rid of now. And I think there's, it's like we've forgotten how to have fun, but still be respectful of each other. And like, what have you seen kind of, or what activities do your crews do to kind of bond in like a healthy way? I'm just curious.
Yeah, so here what I mean, it's different at every organization, but we have two different kind of groups. Well,
Mhm.
actually three. We have like the volunteer group, and we have a resident firefighter
Mhm.
group, and then we have career staff.
Okay.
And so like what we try to do as a team, as an organization, is we like to break bread. So from barbecues to bringing in snacks, potlucks, to just getting together and be like, hey, you know what, someone's going to make a taco bar tonight. Y'all should come early before training. And
Mhm.
I also think what's important too is ask for the feedback. Like, hey, you know what are we missing? You know, we do it at training, we do it at operational level. The other night at our all hands meeting that we have at the first of the year, each chief asked, like, you know, what else do we need? You know, what are we lacking? So I think the communication, most challenges come from communication, but I think a lot of these folks bond outside of work in small groups, you know,
Mhm.
2 to 3, rather go out to dinner or things of that nature, train together. But being a combination department, we're here all hours, day and night. So it's kind of a mixed crowd.
Mhm.
But what we offer here at one of our fire stations, we have three of them, is upstairs we have a game room. So we have pool, we have foosball, we have air hockey, we have a big screen TV, you can watch movies, popcorn maker, the whole shebang. And it's designed for you and your family or friends to come and just have a moment. We're all
Mhm.
about the moments. And like for myself, that's the most important thing, are having those important moments and embracing that moment at the time. So any type of moments we can create, we try to create that environment, as well as we're pretty open-minded and well, when it comes to activities in the valley. For example, we we're a resort town, so we have you know, ski resorts, snowmobiling, and stuff like that. And we're, you know, with the second largest lake in Colorado in our district, there's a lot of opportunity, boating, fishing, if people are into that. But things like that. I think that's that bonding. But I think the hurdle that we had, I think back in the 90s and early 2000s, was like some folks didn't want to hang out with work people, and
Mhm.
because it's all of a sudden turns into work. You
Mhm.
know, I think there's still a little bit of that going around, and then there's some people who depend on work people totally.
Yeah.
I think, you know, I think there's a good mix. You got to have those folks that you can depend on, in your career, but you got to have a whole group of folks outside of your career that help you kind of maintain your board, your personal board.